Ignorance is bliss, they say. I believe that to be true. What I'm about to tell you will disturb that bliss if ignorant you have been. I will share with you some astrological details which are outright terrifying and which confirms the current trajectory the geopolitical environment seems to be on, a death spiral towards World War III. Let me start off with 3 details in 2024 that point towards the potential for a nuclear disaster of some kind this year. Mars will be at 27 Aquarius during the vernal equinox. This is where the US has their natal moon. Last time we had Mars at this spot at this crucial moment of the year was in 1945. In the summer of that year, the US nuked Japan. On April the 8th, we will have a total solar eclipse at 19 Aries. Then on April 21st, Comet Pons-Brooks will reach its perihelion and likely be visible to the naked eye in the dark sky around this time. This is a rare coincidence of 2 spectacular celestial phenomena in the same month. Last time we saw this setup was in 1986, when a solar eclipse on April 8 at 19 Aries was followed by a visible comet on April 10th. Then on April 26, 1986, the Chernobyl nuclear disaster in the Soviet Union occurred. It was the worst nuclear power plant accident in history. The third detail also occur in the spring. On April 21st, Jupiter will be conjunct Uranus. This event takes place in different signs every 13 years or so. On September 25th, 1983, we had the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Sagittarius. The very next day, we had the so-called Soviet nuclear false alarm incident, a situation where the Soviet warning system mistakenly identified incoming missiles from the United States. We have never been closer to a nuclear war than that moment. We cannot know for sure that another nuclear disaster will occur this year, but these indications prompts us to look closer at the current conflicts to see if these could turn sour. There are 4 hotspots at the moment which could lead to the use of nuclear weapons. The tensions in the Middle East due to the war between Israel and Hamas continues to increase. This could escalate into a larger regional war involving Yemen, Lebanon and Iran. Then there is the war between Russia and Ukraine, which poses a threat in Eastern Europe. In Asia, we have the issue with China and Taiwan, where an invasion seems imminent. Finally, North Korea is heating up again with some eerie rhetoric from their leader Kim Jong-un. Let us take a closer look at North Korea. The Korean War, which took place from 1950 to 1953, was a significant conflict in the Cold War era. Korea, which was previously occupied by Japan, was divided at the 38th parallel into 2 zones of influence. The Soviet Union occupied the north and the United States occupied the south. This led to the establishment of 2 separate governments, a communist government in the north and a capitalist one in the south. If you are into biblical prophecy, you might want to take a look at Daniel chapter 11, which is about the king of the north and the king of the south, describing the unfolding of the end game. Anyway, in 1950, North Korean forces, supported by the Soviet Union and China, invaded South Korea. This action was condemned by the United Nations, which called for an immediate ceasefire and withdrawal of North Korean forces. The United Nations, with the United States as the principal participant, formed a coalition to support South Korea. By 1951, the war reached a stalemate around the 38th parallel. After 2 years of negotiation, an armistice was signed in 1953 by North Korea, China, and the United Nations, but South Korea was not a signatory to the armistice agreement. The Korean War resulted in millions of military and civilian casualties. It ended without a formal peace treaty, leaving North and South Korea technically still at war. The Korean Demilitarized Zone was established to separate the 2 countries. A prolonged period of tension and occasional conflicts between the North and South followed and continues to this day. North Korea has recently escalated tensions by threatening immediate military action against South Korea in response to any perceived provocation. This follows a series of live-fire drills near the North-South Korean border involving the firing of artillery shells. Kim Yo-jong, the sister of Kim Jong-un, emphasized that the North Korean military is prepared to strike in case of even slight provocations from the enemy. Kim Jong-un has stated that war on the Korean peninsula could break out at any time due to what he describes as hostile policies and actions from the United States and South Korea. He has directed his military to prepare for war, including the potential use of nuclear weapons if necessary. Kim Jong-un has shifted North Korea's policy direction, ruling out the possibility of unification with South Korea and defining the relationship between the two Koreas as one of hostility and war rather than kinship. Let us take a closer look at the astrology for North Korea to see if there is something on the horizon which supports this increase of tension and possibly an active war. The nation was founded on September the 9th, 1948 in Pyongyang. There is no exact time available, but two options can be found online. If we use the time just past midnight at 12:01 a.m., then their lot of fortune will be at 19 Aries. This is where the total solar eclipse on April 8 will be. If we use a rectified chart found on the Astrology King website with a time just past noon at 12:39 p.m., their lot of fortune is located at 19 Aquarius. This is in sextile to the coming solar eclipse, so a bit curious, I think. Irrespective of the time, we find Saturn at 28 Leo. This is opposite the moon of the US. Mars will be activating this aspect, being at 27 Aquarius at the Aries ingress, a moment which defines the themes of the astrological year. In relation to this setup, we have the progressed moon of North Korea closing in on their natal Saturn. If we use the chart with the rectified time, then the moon will come within 1 degree of this natal Saturn placement on March the 1st. The aspect perfects on March 27th, 2024 during eclipse season. It is worth noting that the last lunar eclipse we had in late October 2023 was at 5 Taurus at the natal Rahu of North Korea. This suggests a significant fated change for the nation. The progressed moon and natal Saturn at the late degrees of Leo is conjunct the fixed star Regulus. According to Ptolemy, Regulus is of the nature of Mars and Jupiter, but most later authors liken it to Mars only. It gives violence, destructiveness, military honor of short duration with ultimate failure, imprisonment, violent death, success, high and lofty ideals and strength of spirit, among other things. So I'm not sure we want a debilitated Saturn at this star or activated in any way. It seems rather destructive in potential. Oh, by the way, NATO also has their Saturn at Regulus. The progressed moon of North Korea then enters Virgo and its critical waning square phase in May 2024. This month, transiting Mars will be in Aries with Rahu giving rise to rash and critical decisions related to war. If the war hasn't already started at this point, I would look for the square aspect between the progressed moon and Mars as the next critical moment. This is another spectacular setup where the moon arrives at the last degree of Virgo, perfecting a T-square with an aneretic Mars in Sagittarius and an aneretic Uranus in Gemini. The last degree is by definition destructive and transformative in nature, but Firmicus Maternus had a specific detail associated with the last degree of Virgo, the temptation by some demon. This dark configuration perfects in May 2026 and is preceded by a lunar eclipse at 29 Virgo in September of 2025, and then a solar eclipse at 29 Aquarius in February 2026, opposite the natal Saturn of North Korea and next to the natal moon of the US. As the progress moon continues to wane through Libra, it enters the sign of its fall in mid-2028 and joins the progressed Venus at the natal Mars of North Korea alongside Ketu, the lunar south node. We do not want anything entangled with the nodes of fate, especially not in this segment of the zodiac, which is called the Via Combusta by the ancient astrologers, a rather harmful segment for the moon. So this is an ominous setup too, which marks off a pivotal moment in the nation's history. At that time, the progress Mars has entered Capricorn next to their progressed fallen Jupiter. Mars and Jupiter is the emblem of the flying eagle, a symbol of great military campaigns, emblematic of a great war, a spectacular show of force and harm to peace. To finalize these terrifying indications, the year 2028 starts off with a Plutonian solar eclipse in exact square to the Korean nodes of fate. So there you have it. There is no easy way to put these dark celestial indications into softening words. So they confirm that the current escalations on the geopolitical stage and convinces me that we are in a death spiral towards total self-destruction from which the only escape seems to be some kind of divine intervention. It reminds me of this quote by the first Christians, "For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against spiritual wickedness in high places." I do not know the future. I am not psychic in any way. I could be wrong. I hope I am. And we tend to cling to hope in the face of impending doom, but hope is not a strategy. Hope is for those who are about to die. Fear is present in those who survives, and without fear, courage has no merit.